So let's dive in. Let's unpack this fascinating narrative.
Let's do it.
Okay, so our story begins, like I mentioned, in maybe the most unlikely of places, the Giread Desert near Zila. We're talking about 70 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
Picture the scene. Abdi Deeqsi, who was also known as Abdi Sinimo, he was a truck driver, finds his vehicle broken down, miles from anywhere.
Stranded. Completely stranded.
Utterly. He's left to contend with this, vast silence and just the crushing weight of boredom. And in that isolation, something really extraordinary sparks.
It often does, doesn't it, in those moments?
It seems so. He begins to softly tap his fingers on an empty drum he has, just this rhythmic pulse against the quiet. Then with this remarkable, almost instinctive skill, he starts adding verses, spontaneous lyrics just forming in his mind.
Incredible.
This, believe it or not, was the genesis, the very beginning of what would become the first Somali songs, a new genre specifically known as Balwo.
That origin story is just, it's amazing. What's truly insightful here is how an entire cultural movement, right, a foundational moment for a nation's music, could spring up from such an accidental, almost mundane spark.
Right. Not planned at all.
Not at all. It wasn't born in some grand concert hall or, a fancy recording studio. It was born out of necessity, boredom maybe, that simple human desire to just create something from nothing.
Yeah.
And Professor John Johnson, in his book Hilui, which is really seminal work, he meticulously traces this story. He relied on invaluable oral narratives from legendary artists like Abdullah Karsha and Hassan Sheikh Mumin.
So it's well documented, even coming from that oral tradition.
Exactly. And that origin story powerfully emphasizes that creativity doesn't always need, the grand stages or the elaborate plans. Sometimes the most significant cultural shifts, the most enduring art, can emerge from the most unexpected circumstances. Simple, spontaneous acts.
It's a real reminder that maybe necessity, or even just that deep isolation, can be a potent midwife for innovation.
Perfectly put.
I mean, just think about it again. Broken down truck, empty drum, profound boredom, middle of a vast desert. It really makes you wonder, why would a desert, isolation, that kind of boredom, be such fertile ground?
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It really is. But maybe it forces you to look inward, to find rhythm and melody in just the overwhelming silence, to create from an absolute void.
Strips away all the distractions.
Yeah, encourages deep introspection. It reminds us that so many innovations, big tech leaps, or subtle artistic shifts often have these incredibly humble, almost accidental beginnings. It's a powerful testament to that innate human drive we have to create and connect, even when things are dire, resources non-existent.
It absolutely is. And, the story certainly doesn't stop there with that first spark.
Right, that's just the beginning.
Exactly. What follows the birth of Balwo is, well, it's a classic tale, really. Artistic struggle, eventual triumph. A pattern you see repeated across cultures throughout history.
The pushback.
Always the pushback. Somali musical songs didn't just burst onto the scene and get immediately adored. No, they developed gradually, moving through these various stages of acceptance, refinement.
It took time.
It took time. As these small towns and rural villages started growing into larger urban settlements, a new kind of distinct urban culture started to emerge, among the young, the middle-aged segments of society.
A shift was happening.
Yeah, a definite shift. And it was within this evolving social landscape, this sort of burgeoning urbanity, that musical songs slowly began to be accepted. First as a new social pastime, then even hailed as a sophisticated new urbane culture.
But that acceptance, I mean, you can guess it wasn't universal, right?
Yeah.
Especially not at first.
Oh, definitely not.
Our sources make it really clear the initial reactions were, well, mixed is putting it mildly, often outright hostile.
Yeah, hostile is probably the right word. Elders, conservatives, people deeply rooted in tradition, worried about societal norms. They predictably viewed this new music with profound skepticism.
They saw it as a threat.
Absolutely. Often dismissing it as an alien culture, something foreign, unwelcome, threatening their established way of life. And religious figures, they went even further.
Oh, boy.
Vehemently dismissing it as the devil's amusements, issuing stern warnings against its influence, seeing it as a corrupting force.
Wow. The devil's amusements. That's strong language.
It really is. And this pushback, from older generations, from religious groups, it reveals a lot about the established norms of the time. New cultural expressions, especially ones that challenge the status quo or introduce new kinds of entertainment, they often face that initial resistance.
Because they're perceived as a threat. to tradition, moral order, maybe even social cohesion.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, how the younger generation actually navigated all that skepticism?
Yeah, how did they do it? They clearly adopted the music.
They did, maybe covertly at first, then more openly. They integrated it into their identity, and slowly, surely, they brought it into the mainstream. It speaks to that powerful, often unstoppable force of cultural evolution, especially when it's driven by youthful enthusiasm, that desire for new ways to express yourself.
And there was a crucial turning point, wasn't there? For music's popularity, our sources mention patriotic songs and poems.
Ah, yes. This is key. This is where music really moved beyond just entertainment. It transformed into something far more significant.
A vehicle.
A vehicle for national identity, for political awakening. These specific songs, they were imbued with this powerful nationalistic sentiment. And they resonated deeply with the Somali people living under colonial rule.
You can just imagine the impact. Hearing those familiar rhythms, melodies, but now carrying lyrics speaking directly to their shared experiences, their oppression, their hopes for freedom.
Absolutely. And this takes us to a really crucial point. How does art, music, poetry, how does it evolve into such a potent vehicle for political and social awakening?
It's a fascinating question.
It really is.
Yeah.
And in this context, it demonstrates how cultural expressions can just transcend mere entertainment. They become powerful tools for unity, for resistance, for fostering that collective identity against an oppressive force.
On that connection between music and national identity.
Yeah.
You see that everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Across so many cultures, different historical periods.
Oh, absolutely. From folk songs of revolution to anthems of liberation, here it was about finding that shared voice, that collective emotional outlet, a way to express national aspirations when maybe other forms of expression were suppressed or censored. The rhythms, the stories of these patriotic songs, they became this unbreakable bond.
So music is slowly finding its footing, starting to be embraced. And then something truly revolutionary arrives, something that would just forever alter the cultural landscape.
The radio.
The radio.
Yeah.
The launch of Radio Hargeisa in the late 40s, an absolute game changer. Suddenly, this new station is offering musically orchestrated songs and more attractive melodies to this rapidly growing listener base.
Imagine the novelty. Hearing professionally arranged music, reaching right into homes, public spaces, creating this shared auditory experience.
Must have been incredible. But it wasn't just local broadcasts captivating people, was it?
No, and that's the remarkable aspect of this period, how radio immediately functioned as this cross-cultural bridge, allowing diverse musical styles to influence each other, spread across borders, long before the internet made that kind of exchange commonplace.
Right, we take that for granted now.
Completely. Beyond Radio Hargeisa, Sudanese musical songs broadcast from Radio Omdurman in Khartoum, they were incredibly admired, hugely popular in Somaliland.
Why Sudan specifically?
Well, people found this really striking, enjoyable resemblance between the smooth melodies of Sudanese music and the rhythm beats of Somali music. It created this unique, compelling hybrid sound that just clicked.
Interesting.
And this raises a fascinating question, I think. How did the absence of visuals on radio force a different, maybe even deeper kind of musical appreciation?
Good point. Pure sound.
Exactly. It placed this pure, unadulterated emphasis on melody, on rhythm. It demanded active listening, and it shaped musical tastes in a profound way that visual media just couldn't. It truly was all about the sound.
You make such an interesting point there about the pure sound emphasis and the source material. It really brings to life the lasting impact of this cross-cultural exchange. It mentions vocal giants from Sudan, artists like Wardi, Kabuli, Khalifa, and Saleh ibn Badi.
Legends, absolute legends.
Their lyrical music absolutely captured the hearts of music lovers in Somaliland.
Yeah.
And the love for these Sudanese songs was so profound that years later, 1964, I think it was?
Yeah, 64.
When these very singers visited Hargeisa to stage this remarkable concert, it became almost mythical.
An event.
A major event. Our source paints this incredibly vivid picture. Music lovers drove from as far away as Barao and Barama journeys that would have taken real effort, real time back then, just to be there that night.
Huge distances.
Huge. And the atmosphere, absolutely electric. The audience went wild, it says. Massive applauses kept roaring over the starry, cool night. Even now, old folks who are there still remember that unforgettable night with incredible fondness. It speaks volumes about its communal impact.
And that's not just about entertainment, is it? It illustrates the sheer power of shared cultural experiences.
Absolutely.
They create enduring memories, forge these powerful, lasting connections within a community.
It's part of the collective memory.
Exactly. A touchstone people refer back to for generations. Think about a concert or a cultural event in your own life that had that kind of profound, lasting impact on a community. Maybe a pivotal moment in music history or a gathering that unified a city. This Hargeisa concert was precisely that for Somaliland, a communal celebration that really transcended mere performance.
Right. Okay, so in those early days, Sudanese music is enchanting listeners, radio is starting to connect people, and now we meet the central characters of our next segment.
The heart of the story, really.
Yeah. First, there's Abdillah Shabiamin, but everyone knew him simply as Guri.
Guri.
He's described as a young man with an extraordinary love for Sudanese music. Not just a casual interest, a deep, abiding passion consumed him.
You get that sense immediately.
And then there's his employer, Mr. Dahir Halas. A prominent figure in Barama, owned a local tea shop where Guri worked as a waiter.
And what's truly insightful here, I think, is how these two seemingly disparate things, deep artistic passion in Guri and this sharp entrepreneurial drive in Dahir, how their confluence often provides the necessary friction, the synergy, to birth something significant.
What can we see here?
Exactly. Dahir, as our source describes him, was known for his sardonic wits and sense of humor, apparently took it to the extreme limit of playing practical jokes on the employees.
Sounds like quite a character.
Definitely. Sharp, observant, clearly had a keen understanding of human nature and commerce. This interaction, it sets the stage for a story of ambition, collaboration, sometimes accidental, sometimes quite deliberate.
And Guri's passion for Sudanese music, it wasn't quiet, was it?
Not at all.
As he served customers in the tea shop, he couldn't help himself, singing, humming popular Sudanese songs. The melodies just filled his thoughts, echoed through his daily work.
It fueled him.
It totally fueled him, and it fueled his fervent wish. The desire to truly hear that music, consistently, clearly, whenever he wanted. But there was this massive hurdle, almost insurmountable back then.
The radio.
The radio. The only way to listen regularly was a radio set. And that, in Somaliland at that time, for someone like Guri, practically a fantasy.
Imagine Guri's inner world then. How did this music, maybe just a memory, a faint echo sometimes, fill his days, his dreams? This is a time before personal devices, right? Before instant access to anything.
Nothing like today.
The psychological impact of having such a strong desire for something so seemingly simple, yet so incredibly inaccessible, it must have been immense. Radios were unbelievably scarce and, more importantly, prohibitively expensive.
The source uses a great phrase. Years before the Japanese electronics invaded our life with flooding effect.
Paints a picture, doesn't it? A time of profound technological scarcity. In fact, there was only one single radio in the entire town of Barama.
Just one. That's incredible. Think about that for a moment. One radio.
Yeah, and that single precious radio was located in the Civil Center, a government-owned public entertainment building. It also offered indoor games, tea.
So it was the hub, the singular point of access for broadcast entertainment, for news.
Absolutely. And Guri, driven by this consuming passion, he frequented the Civil Center religiously, often just to catch one or two of the Sudanese songs tuned from the radio.
Wow. Just for a couple of songs.
Yeah. It highlights just how precious, how limited access to broadcast media was, and the lengths people would go to connect with the sounds they loved.
That Civil Center, connecting it to the bigger picture. It really served as this vital communal hub, didn't it? For information, entertainment, in an era of scarcity.
It powerfully underscores the central role of public spaces for media consumption when personal ownership was virtually impossible. Emphasizes the sheer value, the novelty of radio back then. Like you said, maybe like a community cinema or a public internet cafe today.
A focal point.
Definitely. And interestingly, Dahir Halas, Guri's astute employer, he also felt a dire need for a radio.
But for different reasons, maybe?
Well, partly enjoyment, probably. But shrewdly, his main motivation was to entertain his customers and, crucially, to boost the popularity of his business. He understood the commercial power this new technology held.
That makes perfect sense. In a small town like Barama, having the only or even just a source of popular music or news, that would be a huge draw.
Oh, massive.
You can almost imagine how the mere presence of a radio would have dramatically altered the social dynamics of a tea shop. transformed it from just a place for tea into the town's most popular hangout.
Yeah.
A vibrant hub.
It would provide an undeniable competitive edge, wouldn't it, in that small business landscape? Attracting patrons, setting Dahir's shop completely apart.
And this is where Dahir's creative and resourceful nature really comes into play.
Yes. He understood the demand. He knew he needed to entertain his customers, but an actual radio, out of reach. Financially, practically.
What did he do?
He devised this unusual, frankly brilliant solution, a special presentation without an actual radio.
No way. How?
He shrewdly grouped together 4 young lads known throughout town for their undying love for music and songs. This quartet was a real assembly of nascent talent, a remarkable lineup.
Who was in it?
It included Mr. Gori himself, of course, Abdi Deeqsi, who fascinatingly later became a noted singer and musician at Radio Addis Ababa, Mohammed Gulid, who went on to be a remarkable actor in Somali dramas, and Omar Subugal, a great OUD player, an instrumentalist.
Wow, that's some lineup. A future supergroup almost.
Basically. And what's utterly fascinating here is Dahir's incredible innovative spirit. He didn't just sit around lamenting the lack of a radio. He literally created his own version, a live, analog broadcast system.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How does resourcefulness manifest when technology is limited, but the demand for entertainment is sky high?
It's a brilliant example of human creativity thriving in scarcity, finding solutions where none seem to exist. So Dahir ingeniously built this hidden stage, a large wooden counter near the tea shop entrance. Crucially, it had a small back door.
Sneaky.
Very sneaky. The quartet, with this sort of conspiratorial air, would sneak through and fit inside like a Trojan horse, the source says.
Love that.
To perform their daily program, hidden from the general view of the customers.
Incredible. And the program itself, what did they do inside the box?
It was wonderfully inventive, blurring the lines between live performance and a simulated broadcast. Guri, with his keen ear and passion, he'd briefly present news he'd heard earlier from the real radio at the Civil Center, giving it the feel of a proper news bulletin.
Setting the scene.
Exactly. Then that would be followed by songs sung by the others in the quartet, their only instrument, the tambourine, the DAFF. But they skillfully, melodically organized it with rhythm clapping, creating a surprisingly rich soundscape given the limitations.
Amazing. Resourceful.
And Dahir himself skillfully monitored the program. He was like the producer, ensuring it ran smoothly, keeping up the illusion. It showcases this unique form of live performance, almost a precursor to broadcast media, cleverly bridging the gap between traditional storytelling, music, and the emerging radio format.
Did people know? Did the customers figure it out?
Oh, yeah. The source notes that customers were not fooled, but knew how the presentation was organized, but nevertheless enjoyed it immensely.
That's fantastic.
It reveals this unique, unspoken contract of enjoyment, right? A shared experience, a mutual understanding and appreciation for the sheer ingenuity of it all. It was, quite literally, Mr. Dahir's version of radio, a simple and direct artistic style.
What an amazing workaround. So Guri's still working at Dahir's, humming his beloved Sudanese tunes, helping create the town's unique human radio. But his passion, it was about to intensify, wasn't it? Pushing him towards something truly audacious.
Yeah, this is where it gets even more extraordinary. Periodically, the information department from Hargeisa would visit Barama. They'd bring a taste of the wider world.
Wow.
For public entertainment, they would project films onto the Civil Center wall, turning an ordinary building into this temporary cinema under the night sky.
Wow, imagine seeing a film projected like that for the first time.
Must have been magical. And one particular film profoundly excited Mr. Guri, stirred his soul in a way nothing had before.
What was it about?
It showed Sudanese musicians and singers performing this vibrant musical show right on the bank of the majestic River Nile.
Oh, I can see why that would hit him hard.
Absolutely. This visual experience mesmerized Mr. Guri like a child watching a magician, captivated him completely. Seeing these musicians, maybe their instruments, their gestures, the flowing river, it intensified his head-over-heels passion for Sudanese music to this irresistible, almost all-consuming degree.
And that raises an important question, doesn't it? How can a single visual experience, especially one so powerful, so novel back then, ignite such a profound, life-altering ambition, especially in someone with that already deep passion?
It truly illustrates the profound, often unexpected impact of media, even in its nascent forms, how it can shape individual dreams, aspirations, literally change destinies.
It's incredible how one image, one scene on a wall, can spark a whole new trajectory. And this film sparked a bold, audacious, and frankly, somewhat naive idea in Guri's mind.
The big idea.
The big idea.
Yeah.
If I'm crazy about Sudanese music, why not go to Sudan?
Simple logic.
Almost childlike logic. But then came the fundamental, almost comical hurdle.
No.
But where is Sudan? Guri pondered, but had no idea where Sudan could possibly be located.
Oh my goodness. Just the sheer youthful optimism combined with that blissful geographical ignorance. It speaks volumes about an era before easy access to maps, GPS, any global info.
Absolutely. A plan based on pure desire, not direction.
And this is precisely where the journey really begins. Guri, fueled by this burning desire and a total lack of geographical knowledge beyond a vague sense of West, he managed to persuade his friend Abdi Deeqsi to join him.
The friend from the Human Radio Quartet.
The very same. To join him on this incredible uncharted adventure. Their journey began by truck, taking them to the small town of Kwolajid. From there, they got off and just started walking, aiming for Sudan with deep inner resolve but barely knowing the bearings of their journey.
Wow. And their travel plan.
If you can call it that. Incredibly simple, incredibly audacious, just to keep traveling westward direction.
Just head west.
Just head west. The source notes this was many years before the tail ride was invented, referring to those later more organized, often desperate forms of illegal migration. This implies a more innocent kind of travel, driven by pure individual will, a spirit of adventure, not dire necessity.
You can almost picture them, can't you? Two young men, fueled by excitement, a shared dream. The next day, they arrived at the small town of XOGTA, kept their grand secret plan under wraps, and then just proceeded bravely into the unknown countryside.
Imagine the conversations between them. That mix of boundless excitement, the underlying uncertainty, maybe that shared sense of youthful invincibility you have when you set out on something so daring.
A striking contrast to modern travel, where every step is planned, mapped. This was pure faith in a direction.
Indeed. But that youthful invincibility, it was soon challenged by the harsh realities of their quest.
Reality bites.
It does. After just a day and one night of walking through the wilderness, they encountered the rugged wilderness of the countryside, and they found it incredibly inhospitable. The vastness, no landmarks, the relentless sun, growing thirst, and their meager ration diminishing only added to their growing plight.
It gets real fast.
Very fast. It's a stark reminder of the realities of that kind of undertaking, how quickly idealism can collide with the unforgiving natural world.
And then, as often happens in these stories, a moment of truth arrives. Or at least a stark perspective, in an unexpected form.
The camel caravan.
Exactly. They met a camel caravan traveling from Djibouti, a group of experienced travelers, people who knew the land, knew the danger.
They must have stuck out like sore thumbs.
Totally. The caravan people, seeing these young urban boys traveling in this wilderness, clearly unprepared, immediately suspected their misadventure. They wisely pointed to them the perils of continuing such an unusual, dangerous adventure, and they sincerely persuaded them to give up the mission and go back to XOGTA.
That raises an important question. How do those external realities, harsh environments, the seasoned wisdom of experienced travelers, how do they challenge those deeply held personal ambitions? Force a reconsideration.
It's a powerful moment. That contrast between youthful idealism and the hard practicalities of survival, the camel caravan acts as this crucial voice of reason, of experience, offering a lifeline back to safety.
And this pivotal encounter, it proved to be a turning point, especially for Abdi Deeqsi. He had a sudden change of heart.
You decided to go back.
Wisely, yes. He decided to return.
But
Guri, astonishingly, was adamant and determined to continue the venture. His irresistible impulse just overrode all caution, all reason.
Wow. So what happened between them?
A bitter argument ensued. A clash between pragmatism and pure, unyielding passion. Ultimately, Abdi joined the caravan back to XOGTA, while Guri, with this stubborn resolve, opted to continue his walk to Sudan.
They split up.
They split up. The two young friends parted forever with sad hearts, each pursuing the same dream but in a different path. It's deeply poignant, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly. Imagine how each of them felt as they separated, knowing their friendship might be forever altered. One choosing safety, the other, the uncertain pursuit of a dream. It's a powerful narrative of individual will versus pragmatic surrender.
It absolutely is. And Guri, still urged by this irresistible impulse, he continued walking westwards, alone now, convinced he was heading towards Sudan.
But reality must have hit even harder alone.
Oh, it did. As our source describes, the very next day, the overwhelming reality of his situation finally set in. He felt utterly lost in the wilderness. A profound helplessness just washed over him.
And loneliness.
The apparent loneliness of the situation compelled him to give up the mission and turn back. He had at last reached his breaking point. His determination finally gave way to the stark truth of his predicament.
And just as he decided to turn back, on the edge of despair,
Yeah.
a glimmer of hope appears.
Or
maybe fate.
something like that. He stumbled upon a rough motor road with tracks, a sign of human presence in that vast emptiness. Soon he heard it. The distant sound of a motor engine. Getting nearer, nearer. A beacon of activity.
A vehicle.
Yes. Then, from the horizon, a Bedford truck appeared carrying soldiers. What's fascinating here is the almost cinematic timing.
Right. Help arrives just as he hits rock bottom.
Exactly. Just as his adventure seemed totally over, it highlights that common narrative trope, help arriving precisely when it's most needed, just as hope seems lost. It also signifies his transition, doesn't it? From this solitary, self-driven adventure to being subject to external authority.
So the soldiers picked him up.
They did. A bewildered, exhausted young man took him to an army garrison. After learning about his failed venture, his incredibly ambitious yet naive destination, they apparently treated his case as something motivated by childish whims.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and made crude jokes on his condition. Imagine that scene at the garrison. A young, disheveled Guri surrounded by laughing, maybe mocking soldiers.
How humiliating that must have felt. Having his grand personal quest reduced to a childish whim by people who just couldn't comprehend the passion that drove him.
Must have been both humiliating and deeply disheartening.
But his luck. It was about to change dramatically, wasn't it? An unexpected twist.
A very unexpected twist. The very next day, Mr. Abdurrahman Abe Farah, the liaison officer of the reserved area, happened to visit the garrison.
Okay, and the reserved area, that context is important, right?
It is. It was contested territory, part of western Somaliland, illegally ceded to Ethiopia by the British in 1954. So it underscores the political complexities of the region. Abe's presence and authority were significant.
But what was he like?
Our source pictures him as a courteous and kind-hearted gentleman, a character really defined by his compassionate actions towards Guri.
So he finds out about Guri's story.
He does. After learning of Guri's innocent misadventure, which is such a wonderfully gentle way to put it,
It really is.
Abe sympathetically thought a way to brighten the young lad, Mr. Guri, and uplift his spirits with a surprise. A surprise, we're told, that would arrive 2 months later and utterly flabbergast Guri.
A surprise. What's crucial here is that Abe's intervention, it feels like more than just personal kindness, maybe.
Possibly. Maybe an act of soft power, community engagement by an official, showing understanding, a broader vision. It raises that interesting question. How did Abe, a man of authority, likely a practical man, recognize and value Guri's earnest, if seemingly foolish, ambition?
Speaks to a deep human understanding, maybe. Recognizing the spirit behind the act.
I think so. Mr. Abe simply ordered his aide to see that the young Guri be taken back to Barama and certain official letter be dropped at the post office, setting in motion this chain of events that would completely change Guri's life.
Oh, Guri's return to Barama. Likely, as the source says, hardly prepared for the curious and inquisitive masses of the town who must have wanted every single detail about his misadventure.
Oh, definitely the talk of the town.
2 months pass. He's waiting, maybe reflecting on his failed quest.
Yeah.
And then the stunning, completely unexpected surprise arrives.
The package.
Yeah. Guri was surprised to learn that a posted box was waiting him at the post office. He wasn't expecting anything, thought it must be a mistake. But when he arrived, the postmaster surprised him even more with a box containing, he could barely believe it, a radio set.
Wow. Just wow.
The source says he stood there in disbelief, the weight, the significance of this object just sinking in.
What's truly fascinating there is the sheer disbelief, the overwhelming joy he must have felt. And it makes you think, how did that 2-month wait, the uncertainty, the completely unexpected nature of the gift, how did that amplify its emotional impact?
So it made it even more powerful.
Absolutely. It wasn't just a radio, a piece of tech. It was a symbol of incredible, almost divine kindness, a tangible acknowledgement of his passion, the miraculous fulfillment of this deep, almost impossible yearning.
How did he react?
Guri was laden with fervor and excitement for days afterwards, utterly overwhelmed with joy. He immediately realized the noble surprise was from Mr. Abe remembering his kindness, his understanding back at the garrison.
But how could Abby afford it? Radios were
As rare as diamonds, that's the quote. A vivid metaphor for their scarcity, their immense value. Guri apparently pondered this deeply. How could Abe possibly afford such a lavish gift? He attributed it, humbly, to Mr. Abe's boundless generosity from the humane spirit.
Incredible generosity. So
Yeah.
imagine the scene now in Borama. Duri, the young guy back from this failed quest, now holding this treasure, a radio.
Ultimate status symbol.
Totally. The crowd gathers, buzzing with excitement, whispers turning into exclamations. How did this single object instantly transform his social standing, his reputation, turning him from maybe a subject of ridicule into someone of immense consequence?
It speaks volumes about the value placed on that rare technology back then. Made him an instant celebrity, and predictably, the news of Guri's radio quickly spread like a wildfire throughout the town, fueled by gossip, wonder. For a time, he was literally the talk of the town. Had to confront a barrage of questions about what on earth he'd do with this incredible new possession.
And this is where Dahir Hollis steps back in, the astute businessman.
You got it. Demonstrating his continued entrepreneurial acumen. Dahir, who greatly aspired himself to own a radio for his business, immediately sensed this unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in Guri's unexpected fortune.
He saw his chance.
He absolutely did. He artfully persuaded and wheedled Guri, great words there, to place the radio in his tea shop, knowing the immense draw it would create.
And Guri agreed, even reluctantly.
Yeah, Guri, maybe still a bit overwhelmed by his new status, by Dahir's persuasive charm, rather reluctantly agreed. And this raises another interesting question. How did this personal possession, Guri's radio, immediately become a community asset through Dahir's negotiation, his business savvy?
Highlights that fluid nature of ownership, right? And the shared value of tech in that pre-mass market era. Individual assets quickly become communal resources.
It's a classic entrepreneurial move by Dahir, turning Guri's deeply personal fortune into a significant business advantage, yes, and also a benefit for the whole community.
It really is quite brilliant, a symbiotic relationship born out of a desert adventure and a generous gift. So Guri, now in a somewhat lordly manner, the source says,
Enjoying his status.
immediately placed the radio set prominently at Dahir's tea shop. And just like that, Dahir's dream of owning a radio for his business was finally fulfilled thanks to Mr. Guri's unfulfilled dream.
Perfect summary.
Consider the atmosphere in the tea shop now. How dramatically did the presence of that radio change the customer experience? It transformed it, didn't it? From a simple tea shop into this bustling community gathering place for news, entertainment, shared experience, suddenly rivaling, maybe even surpassing, the Civil Center.
Imagine the conversations, the shared excitement, those collective listening sessions that must have happened there. It became the place to be.
And the impact was so profound that, as the source states, at last the tea shop was able to compete with the Civil Center as the prime hub for public information and entertainment.
And then in 1957, as the BBC's Somali section started gaining significant popularity, its broadcast becoming this crucial source of international news, current events, the authorities actually recognized the tea shop's importance.
Official recognition.
Yes. What's fascinating here is that official validation. They awarded the tea shop with 2 metal poles and aerial wires for better reception.
That's amazing. They literally upgraded the tea shop's antenna.
Exactly. This wasn't just a courtesy. It suggests the radio in Dahir's tea shop had a significant, recognized impact on community life, providing crucial access to international news, information, not just music. It truly showcases how a personal gift transformed into an essential piece of community infrastructure, democratizing access to information, connecting the local with the global.
It's a perfect illustration, isn't it? How these essential communication technologies, early radio, the internet today, they often start as luxuries, maybe personal indulgences, but very quickly become necessities, shaping social interaction, facilitating information flow, democratizing access to knowledge.
They move from individual desires straight to communal necessity. Absolutely.
And as we come toward the end of our deep dive, we learn about the man himself, Mr. Guri, today, or at least as of when this account was written. He is, quite remarkably, the only surviving person of the individuals mentioned in this incredible tale.
A living bridge to this history.
Exactly. He is now weakened by old age and slowly treads the streets of Borama. A quieter, more reflective presence, you imagine. But our source paints this beautiful, touching picture of his enduring character. If you happen to shake his hand, you will see that he is always never without a benign grin, which indicates that he is a person of big heart and proud of his humbleness.
That's lovely. A quiet pride, perhaps, in the incredible journey he undertook.
Yeah. And it raises that question. What does it mean for a person to carry such a significant piece of history within them? That benign grin, it suggests a peace with his past, doesn't it? Quiet pride in the story that undoubtedly shaped not just his life, but his communities, and now serves as a testament to his bold spirit.
And when the author Abdullah Omar Khadi, who meticulously documented all this, when he asked Guri about his young days adventure, what did Guri say?
He simply grinned and said, maybe because I was young and bold.
Humble, understated. A reflection on a truly extraordinary event. That universal feeling of looking back on youthful daring with the wisdom, maybe a touch of wry amusement that only age can bring.
This story, so meticulously documented by Abdullah Omar Khadi, it really is more than just Guri's personal adventure, as captivating as that is.
Oh, much more.
It's a vivid microhistory of technological adoption in a developing region, of cultural evolution, that constant push-pull between tradition and new expression of entrepreneurial spirit blossoming in scarcity, and of profound human resilience, all set within a very specific geographical, historical context. It offers this unique window into the cultural fabric of Somaliland during a pivotal time.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, it highlights the immense importance of oral histories, of personal narratives, in understanding those broader societal changes. This isn't just Guri's story, it's a testament to how seemingly small acts of kindness, like that surprise gift,
Right, from Abbe.
or incredibly bold ventures, like Guri's journey into the unknown for a piece of music, how these things can ripple through time and transform lives. It offers this unique lens to understand that enduring human desire for connection, for cultural expression, and the transformative power of media, even in its simplest, most nascent forms.
It reminds us that behind every piece of technology, there are humans, stories, dreams, sacrifices.
Absolutely.
So we started with the accidental birth of Balwo in the heart of the desert, explored how music slowly, surely gained its rightful, revered place in Somali culture, challenging norms along the way. And then we embarked on Guri's incredible, almost mythical, quest for a radio, a journey driven purely by a passion for distant melodies.
And what truly stands out, I think, from this entire deep dive isn't just the adventure itself. It's how it powerfully highlights that profound universal human desire for connection, for culture, for access to the wider world.
Yeah.
Whether that's through the smooth melodies of Sudanese music, the latest news from the BBC, or just that comforting, unifying sound of a distant voice on the airwaves. The radio became a focal point. It shows how technology, even when it's incredibly scarce, can become this catalyst for entire communities and for the fulfillment of individual dreams.
Guri's journey for a radio, it was driven by an irresistible impulse, wasn't it? A profound yearning for connection through sound. Which leads to a final thought for you, our listeners. In our world today, a world of just ubiquitous information, instant connection, where our phones or radios, cinemas, libraries, communication hubs, all rolled into one.
Everything at our fingertips.
Everything. What is your equivalent of the radio? What seemingly simple connection, what piece of knowledge, or what creative outlet would you go to extraordinary lengths to attain if it were suddenly made scarce? And what kind of journey might that impulse inspire in you? Maybe just take a moment to think about the true value of what we now take completely for granted, and how much human endeavor, passion, and kindness went into making it accessible for us all.